Happy Friday, everybody.
That's what I get for playing with my laptop.
Welcome back to another edition of...
Hey guys. Hey guys. Welcome to the AVADirect live stream. This is Shannon.
I am Joe.
Are you sure you're Joe?
I am Joe.
I am Job. So how you doing today, Joe?
I'm okay.
Ready for your weekend?
I woke up breathing.
Well, if you woke up, I'm pretty sure you were breathing.
Well, no, I mean, you can wake up not breathing. I'm sure that's happened to people before, but...
That would be creepy. So how about we jump into some hardware news?
No.
No? That's kind of how we start every week.
Let's totally jump into
We start every week.
Every week.
Page 1. So, NVIDIA has announced Gamer Celebration ahead of Gamescom in Cologne.
Now, is this the first time they've ever done anything like this? Because I honestly can't recall, and admittedly because I don't pay attention to really much of anything NVIDIA does for PR stunts.
Well, normally they'll have like their own hosted events. I don't remember them doing one before Gamescom before. Yeah. And it's kind of an odd timing because it came up. Usually something like this, they would announce much earlier, and it came in really late. So, and they actually announced it, but supposedly some media are saying that they're sending out special media invites, offering newest insight into new unreleased games, along with some spectacular surprises.
Gotcha. Well,
so what could we assume spectacular surprises would be?
I bet they are pretty spectacular coming from NVIDIA. Well, I mean, with their budget and all.
Spectacularly priced or spectacularly like...
Oh, I didn't see. I specifically did not say priced. But I bet they are spectacular to attend. Spectacular
to look at the big number that might be the price? So I know the same speculation I've had for a long time now is this going to be the next gen card unveil, or are we just going to keep assuming that for the next like 50 live streams at this point?
I'm hoping that by the next live stream we really know what cards they are releasing, if at all this month. Maybe they'll push it to next month.
And if we knew, we couldn't talk about it because it'd be NDA, but we don't, thank goodness. So we can talk about all this fun stuff.
Sure.
Now, I guess we'll take it as just an event announcement at this point, but there was something that did get shown that was really cool. There's an NVIDIA PCB shot shown for what they're considering a potential next-gen GPU. This is obviously a rumor.
Right.
But something that, what's up with the, oh God.
Oh, there's a baby here. Hi, baby.
Thank you, Brooke.
Go away now.
That is creepy. That is really, really creepy. That is just wrong.
I don't know.
That is just so wrong.
I mean, that's a Teletubby baby. It's usually quite cute, but it looked a little demonic.
It looked like heavily edited, and it looked like it was staring into my soul.
Or it was just really hungry. Maybe it was hangry.
Hangry. We're a family-friendly show here. Yes, indeed.
So yeah, we can kind of take this this GeForce party, if you will, as an event announcement. Now, what kind of event is it?
That's the thing. They're saying they're showing off the newest games and some special surprises. Okay. Now that's where, ooh, yay! I'm pointing the right way. Woo! That's a PCB shot that Chip Hell put up, and a lot of people kind of been talking about and speculating with, because if you look at it based on the overall design, that, based on some of the numbering on it, signifies it's a potential Founders Edition or NVIDIA OEM card.
I'm okay with the Founders Edition.
So am I. But what's really cool about this is that the pads are for GDDR6, and there's enough of them to fit one of two densities with 2 gig modules, or 2 gig or 1 gig modules. It's either 8 gig or 16 gig. Great. So some of the rumors of 16 gig card might actually be very true.
I mean, I kind of considered it because it feels like they've been following this moniker of just pushing up the available memory in cards, at least their high-end cards, by about 4 gigs per generation. You know, it was 8 and now it's 12, so maybe they're going to push that up to 16, and then what, 20, then 24? Who knows? Maybe memory prices will drop so significantly by that point in time that they'll just make a straight jump from 16 to 32.
That's the thing. It's tough to say because they've done so many weird things where they went up and down sometimes on certain memory counts, but it seems like they've been increasing it every generation at this point.
Right.
And the one really cool thing that I saw, because, you know, me and you have kind of, we've liked SLI, but at the same time, it hasn't really been usable for a while.
No.
But this PCB, which obviously it looks like it's a more reference, it's not like a test PCB. This actually looks like something that could be coming off of the line.
Right.
Has an NVLink connector, and that was previously Quadro.
I mean, that's well and good and all, but what's that going to do to the cost?
Well, NVLink connectors, as they stand right now, are like $400 a piece.
Okay.
So maybe they'll have a consumer version if this actually ends up being the real one.
See, so that NVLink, again, to set the record straight, that NVLink is going to be on every card no matter what. Card that supports it.
It's up in the air. I mean, if it is, that's going to be, I mean, we know, hey, honestly, how many people that buy gaming PCs here buy dual cards? Wouldn't you say it's kind of a small minority to begin with?
I'd say probably about 25%.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, putting multiple cards, it's, you know, I mean, if people are investing that much, let's say the cards are, let's say they're the same as 10 series, and they're going to be $600-700 for a flagship card.
Right.
And let's say only the flagship cards potentially have the NVLink connector. And let's say, once again, we're assuming a lot. Let's say they'd come out with a consumer edition that's half the price, so $200 for a bridge. In reality, we see bridges going for up to 50, possibly $60 on some of the HB bridges, the high bandwidth.
No, you're not wrong.
So this has the whole thing, I actually looked some of this up because I had looked at NVLink a long time ago, but I had actually looked some of it up. The bandwidth available via NVLink is 12 times faster than what they can do today.
I mean,
if it's the same one.
Those are great specifications, and there's no doubt in my mind that if you're somebody that's going to use what NVLink has to offer, then you'll be a happy camper. My concern, more or less, is that if it's something that's going to be on the PCB, it's going to forcibly increase manufacturing costs, and then you're going to have people that are going to be paying for the cost of NVLink that they'll never use.
That's what. Well, it's just a connector. So therefore, you're paying for SLI connectors even if you don't use SLI.
That's my point.
Yeah.
That makes absolutely no sense unless they followed kind of the same moniker that Quattro did, to where they would have some cards that would have NVLink and then some that didn't. Same model.
Yeah.
They did. That was a couple of generations ago. They did that.
That was a while back.
Yeah. Now it's just on everything. But still, that would, unless NVIDIA is so confident that there are going to be a lot of people that will be using 2 cards because the scaling will be so great and because the adaptability via developers and what they have to do to make it work in games is going to be so simple, then I stand corrected.
Yeah,
I will be one of those people that will probably use 2 cards because it makes sense.
When it comes to PCB layout, there's not a lot of cost in adding that connector, all in all, because it's just a layout. So they're basically laying out the layers of the PCB, pinching them, stacking them together, and you're done.
Right.
So having the connector there, if they had engineered it to begin with and they're using the same PCB like they've done before, they use same PCB and different memory amounts, different BGA, then you probably are fine. But the one thing is that the size of the GPU is actually pretty small when you compare it to other cards that they've seen. So its potential, it could be like a 104 series, like GV104, which has been rumored because Hardware Info added the stuff like we talked about last week.
Right.
So potentially this could be the future GV104 based card, but I mean, only time will tell. But what's really cool is it's a 6 and 8 pin, which is pretty standard for most of the higher end cards,
Right.
and it's a 10-phase. It's a 10-phase power circuit, so or 10-phase basically power feed. So it's going to have plenty of power for especially a more efficient GPU.
Right.
Means the potential for possibly overclocking on NVIDIA cards, if we take this as being a retail product, could be very good.
Music to my ears, considering I water cool everything, so the more I can push, the better. Now I just want to see them reduce the size of these cards to where we get more mini models. Last generation, and they were able to do that with 1070s. Now I want to see them do that with 1180s.
I think once we hit some HBM flagship cards, which obviously we know it's going to come, because the bandwidth is ridiculous for HBM. So once you put that there, the only thing you got to worry about is the power phases on each side, GPU in the middle. The memory's now gone. It's all on the GPU.
Right.
So once that's there, ITX cards are going to be real simple.
Good.
And I think that's going to be the key for something like that. The only thing is, if you have a big, like you have a pretty small case with your Fantex. Imagine someone who has like a 900D, and then you have these little tiny itty bitty cards.
I mean, it's not going to matter. It's what they can do. It's the size doesn't matter, Shannon. Okay.
There's so many jokes I want to go on about right now.
But you can't stay on topic.
We gotta stay on topic, and we're family friendly. I don't want to make those kind of references.
I'm just saying, a big or small card, it's going to do the same thing.
Well, I mean, as long as it has the same technology.
Provide performance that you need to do a job.
But if they're investing, and if they're truly investing in NVLink connector being in there, means they're truly going to make a push again for multi-card, which excites me because that means they must be working with someone, game devs or whatever, to increase the scaling. Because that's one of the biggest problems is even if you have multi-card, a lot of them just don't respond to it.
I just hope it's not something that this is an NVIDIA-only initiative, and maybe they have a bunch of add-in board partners and motherboard manufacturers.
Please, no.
That are all coming together to make sure that the NVLink is going to be as successful as possible with gaming, developers included. Well, this is just a single initiative by NVIDIA because they're like, I don't know, being really cocky and arrogant about it, like, oh, we're just going to tell people it's going to be great and people will eat it up. I'm going to have to wait and see.
That has happened.
I know.
That has happened on numerous occasions.
Oh, I know.
28 core launch.
Look at some, not just that, look at some of the EVGA boards that came out back in the day with the Core 2 Duo series. It's like, oh, it's an SLI approved board.
780i SLI.
Ooh,
I had like
so reliable. I had return rate high.
I had like 8 or 12 of them. I had to RMA.
Dude, I was the only lucky person on this planet that had a 680i that wasn't junk.
Well, that's because 680i's like they failed far less than like 780, 790s. 780i and the 780i FTW, because I had those, and I worked there at the time, and I was having to RMA them all the time.
Crazy.
That was insane. Okay, another really cool one. This is something that's I'm actually excited about because this means the competition really is paying off. According to Mind Factory, Intel and AMD are now at even market share. When was the last time, Joe, that you can remember where Intel and AMD
2000. 2000.
Are you talking like FX60 or original FX?
I'm talking like AMD Athlon slot processors, 2000.
Oh man, I was thinking like
2000.
I was thinking FX64 maybe.
No, I'm talking about when FX was for gamers and Intel was for people that needed to process spreadsheets and work in Microsoft Works.
Yay, NetBurst.
Yeah.
They're like early Conroe processors probably.
I remember because we had PCs in our house that were just like real basic and they had Intel Celerons and Pentiums. And then we had our PCs, my computer and my brother's, and they had AMD processors in it because that's what we did. We gamed, and that was when I think it was kind of even because Intel had the business market and AMD had all the consumers. You know, 18 years it feels like.
Wow. So it's really cool because basically what they're looking at is I actually had a really punny thing. I was like, AMD has risen or Ryzen to 50%. Yeah, I know. Come on, you got to give me my cheesy quote of the day, okay? They're actually slightly ahead of Intel. They're slightly a little bit above 50%.
And they're doing their job.
But what's crazy about this is second gen Ryzen accounts for 44% of the sales they looked at.
Yeah.
First gen Ryzen, 31. Raven Ridge, which is the Ryzen, like the Ryzen 5, Ryzen 3 with the integrated Vega, was 22%.
Yep.
What's crazy about this, Threadripper, only 2%.
Well, yeah.
I mean, HEDT, that just is proof positive right there that HEDT, as much as we love it, it's not necessarily the bread and butter for these guys. It's not what they're selling.
You also have to consider this, though. As a professional, when you buy a high-end workstation, there's one common denominator, and you want that to last as long as possible. Threadripper's only been around for, what, a year?
Yeah.
Give it time.
Oh, I think so. And
I
think
this is a slow and steady race, and AMD will win it long-term if they keep it up.
But mind you, that what that tells you is 44% of their sales is second-gen Ryzen. and 31 is first gen, which means that adoption, it went up by measures of percentages.
Yeah.
So imagine once adoption goes up with Threadripper, they're going to take even more of the potential market
I
unless
know.
Intel makes a big swing for the fence to go for it.
Oh, I know, without a doubt.
And that's going to be pretty crazy. Kevin's going off about family friendly. He's going to do a AVA sponsored Gerber mod. Please do, please. Hey, Tufu's here. Hi from Alabama.
The AVA Pampers build is just around the corner. Can you give us a mock-up of that Pampers build, Kevin?
Yeah, Kev, whip it up. Come on, you got the technology.
Yeah, let's see it.
But just
put your mouse where your mouth is. Not you.
Oh, sorry, not sorry.
Hi from Alabama. Lost as hell. Just got service. Is that why you were just standing out in the middle of a field
with an Uzi?
You looked real lost. Anyway.
Okay, so one thing to note about this, though, is that's complete units sold. But for revenue share, Intel has a much higher ASP, as we know. And so they have it at 58%, where AMD's at 42%. And that's because the ASP for Intel is $285.56, where AMD processor ASP is $212.82.
Nice.
So that's a pretty decent value when you look at it that way.
It absolutely, it's an amazing value. And to see AMD coming back so quickly from where they were, like fast forward into a decade, if they keep up this pace.
Now, this is something from a sales standpoint, because this is kind of your specialty. Have you seen, just a little bit. A little niche of what you do. So, have you seen a similar uptick in AMD sales as far as your customer demand?
Absolutely. What I used to just get, I want this Intel workstation. Now I get a lot of, can you show me the differences between the two? Or I just get people that straight up want it. AMD used to be, I hate to admit this, AMD used to be a secondary choice based on budget. If somebody wanted something at an unrealistic price point and they were on a budget, I would recommend AMD, so they knew that they were cutting costs as much as possible without cutting corners into whatever they wanted the end result to be. And it's a lot of side-by-side comparisons now, and that excites me in a large degree, because I can literally see that shift happen every single day.
Plus, you can overclock in a stock cooler as long as you have 3 monitors. I just watch you shrivel up every time I bring that up. So, Threadripper 2990X leaks. It appears on Canada Computers for sale. This is a fun one.
Thank you, neighbor.
This is a fun one because basically they're putting it out there, and pending this is true, this goes for 2,400 Canadian dollars, which means it's about 1,847.71. Let's say 1,850 roughly.
Or for about 5,000 jars of maple syrup.
And a beaver pelt.
I mean, don't you know?
So this
is a lot of maple syrup.
How much maple syrup, Joe?
Oh, I don't know. Quite a bit, I guess.
Does the value in transferring to USD, does that vary? Like, do you have to dump some bottles out sometimes?
I would imagine so, and the like.
A. I wonder how many Canadian viewers we have that are just like, this is preposterous.
Or they're just laughing at me because my impression of a Canadian accent is awful. But
it just sounds like you've been watching like Super Troopers.
I was gonna say Fargo.
Or that too. I didn't even think about that. That's actually a pretty good one.
Yeah.
So with this, I mean, you've seen AMD directly talked about it. 32 core, 64 threads. So obviously, it's not going to be something you're going to target at gaming.
No, and that's something that I actually had a quote request recently where this individual said that they wanted a workstation class CPU, but a gaming graphics card, but they wanted it in a slim form factor, which limits you to low profile expansion cards, right?
Yeah.
And other than the fact that Threadripper boards don't really exist in the form factor that we needed, I had to point out to him that if you're going to consider Threadripper, don't even bother trying to game, because it's not gaming centric like Intel is, and that made his decision for him. He immediately went Intel.
The original Threadripper, I would say, is if you're like gaming and streaming and whatnot, since they have like gaming mode and stuff like that, you can definitely make it better. But now that with the 32 core, obviously you're gonna have all 4 dies active.
Right.
I feel like that's where you're definitely gonna see the clear like delineation between gaming set processors and like workstation stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's where this is really gonna become a big talking point, because I know someone's going to buy this 32-core processor, and they're going to be like, I don't like gaming on this. This isn't as much fun. It's going to be like, why?
You know, if you would have said that to me about 6 years ago, I would have agreed with you. Now, I think everybody knows better, and I feel like I have to ask less questions to get into the minds of our clients and to determine what they need. A lot of people ask all the right questions. So I think we're getting smarter as consumers, whether you're not capable to build a PC or you just don't want to. People are starting to learn in a way to where I think we can kind of get away from that. It's not 2008 anymore where you buy a Skull Trail system because you want to play Rome and you wonder why your frames aren't increasing.
Well, Kevin Lewis in our chat says, Joe looks and acts like my son. Weird. Thanks, Kevin.
Good to know.
That's awesome. That's awesome feedback. So one thing is we do a lot. I mean, we just recently had quite a few render systems come through here, and this is when this 32 core becomes available. I feel like this is an option, especially depending if this pricing is true. This has the potential to really offset the market that Intel has a very strong stranglehold on right now.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel like this is something that we have a very, very good opportunity to give people an awesome value with something that's going to have a ton of processing horsepower.
It's a great value, too.
Kevin Lewis says, you guys were a big help to me when I built mine.
Happy to be of service.
Happy to be of service. And
thank you for the kind words.
Absolutely. It's awesome to hear feedback like that. That's super helpful.
It makes the job for me, man.
I think that's
to hear solid feedback about any facet. It doesn't even have to be about me. It could be about our shipping department. Well,
in general, about our systems and the fact that the biggest thing I think we like to see is when people get their systems, like when Kevin sent his brother's system, the video over.
Right.
Like, remember Boots and Pants? Boots and Pants. When he sent that over, that's really helpful because then it's like, hey, we actually have people, we ship systems out, and sometimes we never hear about it.
Sure.
And I kind of wonder, like, hey, how are these people enjoying it? Is it doing what they want? So to see that, it's like, that's really awesome, even if they are just singing with it.
Sure. Maybe we'll have a Boots and Pants competition in the future. Anybody who's got a system from us, send us a video of your Boots and Pants PC. And the best, maybe they'll win something. Maybe it'll be a shirt. Maybe it'll be a mug. Maybe it'll be all the things.
Will there be extra credit if they take and edit stuff on top of it as they build the video?
Extra credit?
This is like school, dude. Joe's like, no! So with that, AMD actually had a really cool press event just recently. It was like last week in Italy. And this is Anshul from a good friend of mine from More Insights and Strategy.
Oh, nice.
He basically went there, and AMD usually has a pretty good flair for like special announcements and stuff like that, and when they launch their products. This one, they had it at the Ferrari Museum, and pretty much all over like Modena. They went to the racetrack and had some race prep Ferraris where they let people do some laps on them. And that's obviously segueing off of their partnership they announced with Scuderia Ferrari back when second gen Ryzen launched.
Okay.
And so this was kind of cool, and it makes me really wonder, like, Ryzen second gen, I feel like it really is coming soon, because everything, you see so much coming out about it. They showed the performance at Computex, so obviously they have a product ready to ship. They even held it up and showed it. They're like, this is ready to go. It's going to be shipping, like, they actually, I think they quoted, like, it was going to be shipping within August or September timeframe, like very soon.
They're just building up the anticipation at this point.
And if the performance numbers they showed, which once we have it, we will definitely be making videos showing you guys how it performs. If those numbers hold true, it is going to be one really awesome product, and I feel like it's gonna knock out a lot of what Intel has over the big HEDT game right now.
Right, and exactly as you said, if that holds true.
That's
as
the
much
thing.
as I would like to believe that manufacturers are giving out organic numbers pre-release, that kind of hasn't been the ongoing theme in the past year.
Like chiller and stuff like that.
Just everybody's doing it now. It's like the theme. It used to be the theme to be straightforward with your numbers and actually tell consumers what to expect. And then all it took was probably one outlet or one company or a few to start kind of fudging those numbers a little bit to their advantage, and now everybody does it.
But that's the thing. I think now, like you actually said something perfect that applies to this. everyone is so educated now, and you have access to so much information with the internet being like what it is.
You just can't get away with it.
Yeah, you can't pull that kind of crap because, I mean, people called it as soon as like Intel had their demo with the 28 core. You think if they're showing these numbers, and next thing you know, they go out to reviewers, which is going to be like, they're just going to put those numbers out there. They're not going to, they're not going to lie for AMD. They're going to put it up and it's going to be like, here's what we tested. And if it's like 30% off, people are going to be like, what's going on? This is crap.
Yeah.
And we have seen that before, actually.
Yes, we have. Anytime you see a drop in a product, especially from a specific manufacturer after a short amount of time, that's never really a good sign.
Or remember back in the day when Bend ES chips, reviewers would get them, and then next thing you know, you get them and you plug one in, you're like, wait a minute, that guy got like 20% faster. What happened?
Yeah.
Oh, it must have just Silicon Lottery.
No, that's where it started with Sandy Bridge. I used to get people all the time that I want a processor that's going to overclock to this, this core speed, and I'm like, okay, we can't really guarantee it. Well, can you just keep going through them? Can you just keep going through processors? And I mean, if we had somebody, look, I had no problems doing that for people because we do keep popular processor models in stock and at a decent bulk. I had no problem doing that as long as you just cover our time to do it, because it can be, you could get lucky and it's like, hey, this is the second processor we grabbed and it overclocks to 4.5. Or it could be, all right, man, this is the sixth one we grabbed from the shelf and we managed to do it. Cover our time and we'll do whatever you want.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, it's a service, right?
Yes.
We can offer to do all kinds of things, but it really comes down to limitation of the silicon.
If it makes sense to you, it makes sense to us.
By the way, Kevin said something really cool. He said, I'm going to take a picture of Chris every night this week, PUBG on his brand new AVA every night until he passes out.
Okay.
That sounds familiar.
You're going to do like a transition.
You're just going to see his beard get longer and longer as he's just playing and doesn't leave his room.
Yeah, like the effects of PUBG on the teenager in long-term use.
Okay, so
you see his brain just swell bigger, and you're like, oh man, it makes him smarter.
That is one thing though. Just off of the topic before we switch to the next one is AMD always does. Like remember Fiji launch where they took people to like Hawaii and stuff like that. Yes. Seems like every time they take people out places, and I saw some comments people had made that was kind of funny. They're like, yeah, they're doing all this stuff to kind of deal with the fact they have a subpar product, and I feel like it's no longer the case anymore. I feel like now the numbers have spoken. I mean.
Right.
The things are performing way better than what we used to deal with. So I can understand them padding it before, but now it seems like we are getting legit products. And I mean, like for instance, previous Threadripper launch, when they had numbers they put up, when we tested them in house, they were spot on, or at least within margin of error.
They were close. They were close. They said memory compatibility was a little bit better in the refresh, and
it's better now. It took some updates.
Yeah, no, but that's my point, though. They said at launch, like, hey, the refresh, it's better. And we were like, where?
Well, hey.
Fast forward to now, not a problem anymore.
Yeah, but you do got to remember original Ryzen launch? It's like plug-in memory, won't post. Plug-in memory, won't post. Hey, we found a stick that posts.
I wish I didn't. There's that. At least I wish I didn't remember it.
Oh, that was really rough, actually.
Yeah, like, okay, I guess we're going to use this memory for Intel boards. And this one, too. And this one as well.
And it got so bad, actually, at the very beginning. Remember? We had to look at the QVL, and it's like, oh, there's 3 kits. Cool.
Yeah. only sell this kit with this system, and this system, and this system, and this system. Okay.
Your customer calls, he's like, I want this. It's like, here's your options.
No, we were offering the option, but we basically had to put a disclaimer on the configurator at first that just said, keep in mind, you can still choose what you want, but due to AMD's limitations, we can't guarantee
compatibility.
Yeah, and that's one thing we try to do. We always want to be as transparent as possible. If there's something that's kind of limiting because of something that the manufacturer has decided to do with their product, we'll tell you. We're not gonna lie.
Yeah, we're not gonna like BS you or sell you something that ain't gonna work. We're gonna test it and let you know like, hey, this isn't working. We suggest this.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But you still have that freedom of choice.
Yeah. Freedom of choice.
Now the next thing, because I feel like so much is going on with Threadripper Second Gen with so much information coming out, is there was a post on Instagram by Tiny Tom Logan of OC3D. He just received a MSI Meg Creation board, which is the one that has that gigantic VRM cooler. Oh wait, gigantic VRM cooler because it's like some ridiculous like 19-phase VRM or something like that for it.
Seems legit.
So I mean, obviously they're building it out to cover the fact that they announced that the TDP is hypothetically like 250 watts.
Right.
And the only difference is the last chip they had that was like 250 watt TDP was an FX9590, and that was a flaming dumpster fire.
Yeah, you mean the one that was guaranteed 5 gigahertz out of the box, right?
On LN2. I had one, and it almost melted in the I/O. So
cool.
That was pretty much, and it almost melted the motherboard it was on.
Good. Just put like a box fan on it. You're good.
Just leave the processor and just a fan blowing on it.
Yeah.
Not even a cooler. Just.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I don't know if you remember, we actually did that with an i3, and remember it just throttled, but it stayed running?
Yeah, it was fine.
That was ridiculous.
Did okay.
So with this board being in his hands, normally stuff like that shows up at reviewers, Joe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Normally it shows up in the hands of reviewers when they're going to have something to put in it.
Yes.
So that's hinting at the fact that Threadripper 2nd Gen is going to be a really big thing pretty soon.
Mm. They might have a 48-core Threadripper Gen 3. You never know. Maybe they're planning for the future.
Rurudu did ask. He said, 19-phase VRM, are they going to have a 48-core Threadripper Gen 3? You never know. It depends if this core war keeps going on or if they start pushing toward efficiency eventually.
I'm sorry, did you just say core war?
Core war.
We need to illustrate a cartoon called Core Wars.
So basically,
immediately. AVA Core Wars.
Kevin, I need your help. I need 2 CPUs fighting each other,
yep.
AMD and Intel.
No, we're fighting all the cores off, trying to dominate the world.
Oh,
Shannon
no.
and I. Core Wars.
Just me and Joe shooting at chips.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do that noise again. That was horrible.
Yep. And then what we'll do is, we'll get, and here's the premise for it. We'll get like a bunch of allies. Like, you know, we'll have hardcore, and then we'll have like Apple core. You know,
and then the Apple core would just overheat and throttle.
And then there's the kind of dicey metal core.
I just got where you were going there, and
just saying.
I am so bad for this. That's horrible. So that VRM is just ridiculous. So the board is definitely huge. If you look at the way it was, it's like that's like one of those enthusiast EATX. So the EATX boards, that means that if you're building a system based off of that, which I think, you know, we've looked at it internally as far as what we would probably use to once 2nd Gen Threadripper comes around. I feel like that's one of the top boards that's going to be available for it at this time that we've seen. And that goes to the next topic, which is some X399 boards are getting a cooling kit treatment to better support 2nd Gen Threadripper.
Hey, at least they're going that far, because there have been plenty of other board manufacturers before, and I will not cite specific times, that did nothing about their poor engineering on next gen release boards, and we as consumers and system integrators were left to deal with it.
You wouldn't be talking about the launch of X399 boards, would you?
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay.
Nope. Thank you, ASI.
Did you say ASI?
I meant AS Rock.
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah,
what does the distributor have to do about this?
No, AS Rock. AS Rock came out with their own kits when they didn't have to help with certain problems that certain boards were having. So.
But you saw that, right? Basically, this kit, like for instance, the Zenith Extreme, the 3 Asus boards have this thus far. And you have like the Zenith Extreme, it comes with the Zenith Extreme comes with a cooling fan, like a little 40 mil cooling fan, a bracket, and then it actually has a small heatsink that goes below the CPU socket that cools the SoC, voltage regulators. Now, what's weird about that is the other 2 boards, it lists a bracket and the SoC cooler and screws, but no fan.
Okay, so use your own fan.
So, BYOF.
I mean, fine, bring your own fan.
So,
or don't bring your own fan. Just slap a giant heatsink on it and call it a day.
Well, yeah.
Slather with thermal paste. Job's done.
But we're talking about cooling the VRM, not the CPU.
Whatevs.
Because you put a massive 250 watt TDP CPU in there, theoretically, that on a board that's supposed to handle 185, that VRM's going to get a bit more toasty. Kind of like the HTC chips in X299, where next thing you know, you place it in the socket and it's like, hey, VRM throttling, awesome.
Yep.
Kind of like that.
This performance is not what it once was.
And unfortunately, they don't make pills for your motherboard, so.
Nope.
So with that, at least they're doing something. They're not just looking at going, we're going to re-engineer a new board, so buy another board. Asus is like, hey, our VRMs are good enough, we just got to get some airflow over them. And that's because, let's face it, a lot of people are doing AIOs, they're making silent systems. Sure. Maybe not enough static airflow, but I'm betting if you have a good amount of case airflow, you probably could keep the VRMs cool without even that kit, but I think they're trying to be extra safe.
At least they're not making any of those cheesy air shrouds again.
Now you got to remind me, which ones?
EVGA.
Oh, is it the ones that like went over the whole board, like the shrouds that fed everything?
It was just like a hood, like direct air here. Air here, okay, good, because they didn't want to use fans.
Oh, that's right. So they just caught the air that went by.
Yeah, it was just a hood.
I have nothing to say to that. That's bad.
All is well and good in the hood.
That is
for
all
EVGA boards.
Let's see. Josh Vifta said TR2, Threadripper version 2, hurry up. I definitely agree. I want to see it as soon as possible.
That's a good point, Chad. I want to be silent. So yes, please give me 40mm fans. I mean, honestly, I would be the kind of person that if I absolutely had to do it and I didn't, and you had no choice to liquid cool it, I'd just buy like Noctua 40mm fans, call it a day. Or I have used Noctua 40mm fans before, and you can't hear them.
Well, yeah, but they're awesome. They're just really expensive.
Yeah, like $35 a fan.
For a fan that big.
You're almost paying $1 per millimeter.
That's just bad.
That's like back when it was like $3 per gigabyte for SSDs, and you convinced yourself that was a great value.
That's so bad. Josh Fifth is asking, are the Sister M2 add-ins going to become the norm? Sister M2 add-ins. Do you know what he's talking about?
Yeah, the one where it's a DIMM slot, basically.
Oh, like the DIMM 2.
Yep.
I actually really like the way they did that. It makes it...
Not for airflow.
Well, yeah, it blocks... It's like a wall.
Imagine this. You got people that are going to start using Threadripper a lot more often, right?
Yeah.
You got somebody that needs it rack mountable in a 2U. And that sister board needs to be used.
I've got nothing to say to you. You're screwed. There's no way. I got nothing for you.
That DIMM 2.
That DIMM 2 sits right above like everything.
You're just gonna create a ramp in front of it, so it's like just shoots the air over it. Like, what are you gonna do?
Please clip that. That's got to be next week.
There's nothing you can do with
You almost got to take a manila folder or something and just like have like it ramp over it.
I mean, we had boards that we were shoving in 2U cases that were desktop boards because our clients had specific use case scenarios to where the memory was causing airflow issues.
That's just too small of a VRM cooler.
Yeah, so what we had to do is we had to drop to very low profile memory when that was the thing with DDR3. You notice you don't really see that much anymore with DDR4.
You only see it on like the server stuff. You see some really low profile DIMMs like the ECC non-registered. You'll see some of those low profile ones.
Yeah, but I mean, unless they give you a value add for using the sister M.2s, like some boards had 2 M.2 slots on each side, and then you're like, okay, that's cool, you know?
Yeah. And the other thing is like one thing Asus did. I don't know if I'm not really a big fan of it. Big fan, kind of a joke after all our fans, but I'm not a big fan of the way they did it because I'm worried about breaking. I'm worried about breaking it. But you've seen the vertical M2s that go like the bottom of the board or like near the 24 pin. I'm not a big fan of it because aesthetically it's not very good looking. But if you had a couple of those, you're only using, what is it, like 1 inch by ½ inch?
Yeah, the profile on the board's okay, but again, if you use it in something that's low profile or you require low profile, like forget about it.
Can Kevin, he's all VRM size envy? No, stop it.
Yeah, Asus did not use 40mm fans.
No.
Or they did not use Noctua fans.
No.
You are not wrong, Mr. Sebring.
No, they definitely didn't, and there's a lot of proof of that, especially on the Threadripper boards where they had that little, on the Tough board, remember? They had
the Tough boards always had them, and I never used them.
Or they pre-built it in, though, into the actual I.O., like on it, and it was...
I cut the cable.
Yeah, because otherwise it gets noisy and fills with dirt and just goes to crap.
Right, and we have equipment here to be able to test thermals in Assistant that will give us a thermal image and map of the entire computer, and we did test to see if those fans really make a difference. It's all marketing.
If anything, it's very light movement of air. It's not helpful enough.
It just doesn't change the color well enough if you look at it from a temperature scale, from blue to red. It changes the hue saturation by like 4 numbers if you have something to read that difference.
It's a few degrees. It's marginal at best. And it's not worth the extra sound you get, the extra noise you potentially get, and dealing with it failing, because that's the other problem.
Right, it's like marketing a board with a special I/O panel that's anti-vibration.
Rurutu asks, does DIMM 2 have any speed increase benefits? No, unfortunately, it's limited.
Zero.
It's limited to the PCIe lanes available, man. So you get. If it's a PCIe X4 drive, then you get PCIe X4 speed. That's just it.
Right.
You're limited to right around 3,700 megabytes a second, theoretically, on the top end. Mm-hmm. And that's if you really care about sequential, because you're just going to write giant files all the time.
Right.
But otherwise, it really doesn't matter.
Nope.
Now, next one. We're actually moving away from AMD news. We're going to Intel. The rumored 8-core mainstream part, or theoretically, or at least by rumor, wrecks Ryzen in 3D.
I spy.
Wow, that was cool. Oh, whoa.
With my little eye.
Hey, there we go.
The right scroll.
So check this out, man. This was on a. The cool part is it lists all the system details under this result, and so it was done on a Z370E gaming on Asus. So we know it's a mainstream part, 8-core, 16-thread, and it got a 10,719 score. So it was 1,100 points approximately over like what we saw on 2700X, and like around 1,800 points faster than the 8700K.
Right.
Now that's obviously one benchmark, but that gives you an idea of the amount of processing horsepower if this chip actually sees a light of day, and if it's what we think it is. This can be a very, very strong chip, and it did show, by the way, it showed a turbo clock of just north of 5 gigahertz. Now, whether it was overclocked or not, we don't know, and with Intel's recent things, we just don't know what actually comes from it, but at the end of the day, it did show a max turbo speed of 5 gigahertz, so we're kind of getting some small trickles of that, and I'm not sure if that's something we'll see soon, or if it was something where it was overclocked, wasn't overclocked, but
it's about time.
It's a cool indicator to see that we may potentially have a mainstream 8-core part on Z370 or whatever chipset comes after that.
Right. Yeah, and you gotta consider. I say probably about close to every 8 to 10 years is when we get a full gigahertz increase as the norm for a processor. So by 2020, 5 gigahertz will be like, that'll be base clock stuff, is what I anticipate.
But also we're running kind of into some of Moore's law, where you're only so fast you're gonna have transistors and gates being able to open and close it all the time. So that's the other thing. We're gonna have a tipping point to where you simply can't make it move any faster.
Right, and that's when I think that silicon alternative is going to come into play.
Yeah, because you're going to reach a point where silicon simply can't support anything faster or smaller.
Right. Do you ever think that they had ever thought about that when they first started fabricating CPUs with silicon? Like, oh, well, here's its limitations. Like,
oh, that was so far ahead, probably at that point.
Never going to be a problem, or not going to see it from my house.
I mean, 8086K or 8086 original was like 40 years ago. So, I mean, they just had the anniversary with the new proc, which, by the way, is available at AVADirect.
They did.
8086K.
Huh? What?
What? New processor? We only talked about it.
Yeah. What I'm recommending a lot of people do if you're going to overclock that 8086 is that you go with our deload service.
Please.
Worth every penny, man.
Please. It'll get you.
Everything we would do to deload our processors, we do for you. We don't cheap out on anything like some other people. And we make sure that it's really going to work out well for you. I'll even give you a deal on the D-Lid if you purchase an 8086. I will repeat, I will give you a deal on a D-Lid if you purchase an 8086.
So, with that said, you got to call Joe.
No, I mean, you could email. You could just send us a message and I'll know what you're referencing. And obviously my sales team is going to know what I'm talking about because I'll relay the information to them. But yeah, I will do that as well.
Marudu says, it was probably using LN2 cooling. They forgot to put it in the press release. Actually, that wasn't a press release. It actually, someone uploaded that result to 3D Mark and probably just forgot to unplug their test system while they were testing a new CPU.
Yep.
Or intentionally forgot. Now, I've got some painful news again, Joe.
Great, I know. Let me guess. They're pushing the 10mm fabrication even farther back in 2019.
It's because you cheated. You reread it already.
Nope.
10 nanometer is pushing, and it's hitting late 2019 now. This has been confirmed.
You mispronounced 2020.
Well, I figure, no, we'll get there. Give us a few more live streams. Next thing you know, it'll be like, we're just not going to do 10 nanometer. We're just going to stay at 14 for the rest of our lives.
That's what the discussion with Intel is going to be like. Like, dude, you guys said that like 4 live streams ago. What?
During their earning call, they actually brought this up. They said that due to the yield issues, they are looking at mass production, so they will have systems on the shelf, is what they're saying, by holiday time 2019. So that means a year from now, we might start to see production silicon of 10 nanometer.
Great.
So nothing to look forward to for quite a while, I'd say, because that's
not from Intel, at least.
That's going to be 14 nanometer for 14 nanometer plus. I don't know how many times they're going to respin it, but it's going to have to hold for a while. It's going to have to hold its own for a while until they can get around to getting the improvements they need to get 10 nanometer out.
See, and this is the importance of making sure that you don't release information until you're pretty certain that you're going to be able to deliver.
Yeah, it's important because you're setting expectations, and that's something AMD used to be really bad about. Was they would hype it up so bad. Like remember original Vega launch?
Oh, I know.
They hyped it so hard, and the next thing you know, it came out, and it's like, wow, this really isn't great.
I kind of feel like the community started to hype it, and they were like, oh man, we got a lot to live up to. We better like try and take care of this as quickly as we can, and then it ended up being what it was.
As PR, normally you can actually control that hype by just putting a little honesty out there and going, hey, this is what we're expecting.
True, but if you're AMD, are you really going to get upset that like somebody's hyping up your product because it's been how long since your product's been hyped like that?
That's true, and I'll give you that. But at the same time, then you're dealing with the damage to your brand if it doesn't meet even close to those expectations, which is what happened. If Vega was like, hey, it's going to be here, then it launched, it's all...
I don't know, I think AMD has nothing to lose in terms of damage to their brand.
Well, after everything that's happened...
I feel like AMD would have to try a lot harder to damage their reputation than Intel would at this point.
Rurudu is asking, what are the benchmark results for the Intel Net 10 nanometer laptops? Those have only, as far as I know, that was one Lenovo unit that they released, and it was in China. I don't even think it's made it to US market yet. So I'm not 100% sure because that was like an i3 model. Right. So I haven't seen a whole lot of information about how it actually performed overall. I only saw some offshoot stuff, which we shared a few weeks ago on the live stream, just showing like, hey, it was out there basically. And they dug into it and did find that the density was like 2.7 times, if I remember numbers off the top of my head. They had a really good addition to density, but overall, it wasn't anything performance-based.
Right.
Now, for some good news, because now that we know 10 nanometers like basically dead in the water for a while now, the analysts are showing that NAND flash prices will drop throughout the rest of 2018 because they went from having a shortage of memory to now they're overstocked on it.
So they have a surplus.
They have a surplus because I couldn't think of the word to use. Thank you for that. That was huge.
Man, well, do I hope that they come out with some SSD surplus stores. I could just call it SS surplus.
SSD surplus.
Surplus.
So, the word they used was oversupply.
So all the people that have basically been waiting to upgrade their storage in their consoles because what huge difference is it going to make? And now you'll have an excuse because it'll be cheaper.
Well, it will, and that's the thing. Cost per gigabyte, that's been one of the reasons people haven't adopted SSDs. And now with QLC NAND coming out, so it's going to have a lot more density and per NAND chip, and the reduced costs, I feel like people are really going to start, you're going to start seeing mass adoption of SSDs, and I feel like hard drives are really going to start to disappear, except extremely high density drives in like enterprise applications.
Well, I mean, they anticipated that within like a 35 to 45 year lifetime, that hard disks would just be gone.
And that's the thing. See, I totally agree with that. But one thing that was kind of proof positive of this shift is that WD, I don't know if you saw the news on it. Actually, it's kind of an offshoot, but a quick discussion is WD actually is planning on shuttering one of their major hard drive plants.
Yeah.
I can't remember where it was at. I think it was like Malaysia or something.
Sure.
And they're shuttering that plant because it's just simply the demand for, especially with them partnering with consuming SanDisk. Mm-hmm. Their plan is to move more toward flash because flash is now becoming what's going to be the thing. So magnetic media or your standard mechanical media is going away. And that's huge because that means even better performance for even like baseline systems. Because that's one of the things that can hold things back is you get these like, let's say more budget systems. People don't realize how much performance increase you get from an SSD versus a hard drive, even on like an i3 model system. It's amazing. The system can change the way your system operates across the board. Wouldn't you agree?
I mean, it's exactly what it did. It was taking systems that were, priced at about $550 and leaving a bad taste in your mouth in terms of its longevity, and you throw in an SSD in there and it flips it around for an extra $100.
And the thing is, the hard drives, when you think about it, it can make it seem like your system's laggy, like your CPU's slower than it actually is, when in reality, it's just waiting for the data to come off that drive.
You wouldn't believe the amount of people that don't realize that even having a hard drive in your computer, not even as your main drive, will slow it down.
Like a hard drive, just for cold storage, will slow your system down.
It happened to a few people where they were banking on their hard disks to hold a lot of media, and when I took a look at it, I noticed that the complaint in this particular system was that the mouse was stopping every like 5 seconds and then moving and then stopping. When sitting there quietly, I could hear the disk struggling to read from the header, and every time that happened, the mouse just locked in place. And I'm like, you gotta pull that disk out of your system, man.
And what's crazy is you don't even have to be accessing that drive. All it takes is for like Windows to be pinging it, going, "Hey, are you still there?" Like it sends interval pings, and when it has to respond to that, it can slow your system down.
See, but that's what made green drives, Western Digital green drives back in the day, so quintessential. because at the same time they'd power down, but anytime something caused it to seek data from it for anything, whether it's a background process, it would lock up your system for a second, you hear the disk spin up, and then you do your thing, and then it would spin down, and it would just kind of rinse and repeat.
And that's helpful, but still, when you have that spin down, whenever you set, let's say your system to high performance mode, it disables some of that stuff, so next thing you know, it's constantly pinging that again. And that just sucks.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. It was meant to be a good feature, but it actually did bad for people.
It's bad. Now, another one that's either going to be meh for you, I'm not sure, Joe, but because I know we talked about PCIe 4.0, Microsemi has announced their PCIe 4.0 switches and SSD controllers.
Again, when we're not saturating the PCI Express 3.0 lanes. Yay.
But there's an important thing they brought up here. There is their PCIe-based SSDs. You're getting mid 3,000, 3,500 or so transfer rates with the existing controllers. Now you're going to be able to push a theoretical like 8,000 megabytes a second.
Yay.
But once again, that's sequential. The big thing I want to see is if they can improve the performance similar to like what 3D Crosspoint does.
Yeah.
With by 3D Crosspoint, I mean like Optane. That if they can increase the low Q depth performance, that's going to be awesome. Then that would be a game changer. The other thing that PCIe 4 I feel is going to be strong is something you deal with a lot, which is like workstation stuff with like Mellanox cards, with I'm trying to think like fiber channel cards, 10 or 100 gig networking cards, things like that. Or even HBAs, things where are InfiniBand, where where you have these controllers that require a ton of bandwidth, so you either use more lane allocation or now you have faster lanes across the board.
Yeah, as long as if the lane allocation increases, that's great because then you're going to get a faster, instantaneous transfer of data.
Well,
and
no,
things
the
like
same.
RAID controllers that's going to make a huge difference.
But see, that's the thing with PCIe 4, you go from 8 gig of transfers to 16, so it doubles.
Great.
So basically, you're getting twice the amount. So imagine your PCIe X4 and your M2 goes from that theoretical, let's say 3,700 meg limit to double that.
And then we'll have NVMe cards that are PCI Express 8, and then we'll have RAID controllers or network devices that are PCI Express 16, and people are just going to be like,
that's just going to be nuts. That's imagine.
I'm not complaining. As somebody that's a home server, I may actually buy a RAID controller card for it if it's like 16x. Like, just why not?
Well, that would be. But imagine how much. I can't even wrap my head around how fast the transfer would be if you had a full 16x RAID card and you had drives capable of saturating it.
Well, Shannon, you don't have to wrap your head around it because that's what computers are for.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate that clarification.
You're welcome.
And there's one more piece of hardware news before we jump into some game stuff. And this is one, because I know you have it. Logitech acquired Blue microphones.
Could not be happier for them, for both companies, really.
Absolutely, because they acquired Astro. So now they acquired Blue, so they're really...
Blue Astro.
Blue Astro.
That's going to be the name of their second company that they're going to... Come on, Blue Astro.
Let's see. Isn't PCIe 4 going to be short-term generation? They already have PCIe 5 ready to go. They have PCIe 5 spec finalized. But as we've seen with, what's it, SIIG, I think, when they create these specs, they create them, they test them, they create more stuff. It's kind of like a court case. It takes forever to get through anything. So the amount of time these consortiums take to actually apply this spec is very long. So figure if PCIe 5 spec already exists, yes, but implementation of it you probably won't see for several years, if not possibly, would you say, Joe, maybe a decade?
Just about.
Because PCIe 4 will probably be like next-gen chipset, I imagine.
PCIe 3 came out, just about a decade ago.
Yeah.
A little bit under. I want to say it was around 2009.
Like 8 years.
Yeah, 2009 is when it was announced, and then 2010 was right when it was implemented because it was implemented in the GTX 500 series cards, right?
I'm going to have to look that up now. I'm not sure. I think
I'm going to look
it was either 4 or 5 series.
Yeah, I'm going to look
because I know 2 series. I'm pretty sure 2 series was. Let's see.
I'm just going to look for.
Joe's doing things.
I'm just going to look for random cards to see what's.
Just start looking like GTX 480. Look up the.
That's what I'm doing. 480.
George Foreman grill. George Foreman grill card.
Yeah. What?
You remember that? They look like a George Foreman grill with a big metal plate.
Get out of town.
But while Joe's looking that up, Logitech acquired Blue microphones, which Joe actually has, I believe, a Blue Yeti. Awesome. That's one of the go-tos for streamers. And
it's blue and it's in need of advice from Logitech.
So Logitech is really beefing up their.
Oh no, I'm beefing it up too.
Joe's beefing it up. They're really beefing up their profile for like streamers and gamers. I mean, Logitech's been like a huge market share holder for gamers, and they're just increasing this by acquiring companies like Astro, who I personally use, and I love their headsets. I haven't used a Blue Yeti mic yet, actually. I've been looking forward to testing Joe's out. It's really awesome from everything I've heard, but I haven't had the chance to test it. And if everyone's saying it's good, it must be. I mean, I can't imagine everyone's going to be wrong. How's the PCI Express coming?
I'm looking. I just went to the wiki.
There you go. 3.0. 2010. Available.
November 2010.
Beautiful. That was a good remember. And look at that. 2017, SIG announced the PCI Express 3.0 spec.
Yeah.
So that tells you, when they announced it, it took 3 years to implement it once it was finalized.
Yeah.
Rurutu put it's probably 700 series. What card would be 2010? I'm betting that was 4 or 5 series.
2010, I believe it was 5.
Okay, well, there you go.
480 was 2009.
That's right.
We're gonna cross-reference this piece all night, all day.
Wait a minute. I'm pretty sure 5 or 6 series was 2011.
I remember selling GTX 550 series.
There we go.
480 series, yeah, in 2010. So you're right.
4 series
GTX
was the
500 series 2011. So that means the 400 series.
400 series
was
the one that had the
2010.
There
it
you
was
go.
April. So no. It was April before the PCI Express even released. Then right.
So was it capable? Now we've got to ask.
Yeah, because hold on, wait. November 18th, 2010 was when PCI Express 3.0, and the GTX 400 series was April. So the 500 series was the first generation to use PCI Express 3.0.
But was 400 series 3.0 ready? Pull up GeForce.com. I'm going to win this.
480 PCI Express. Like people are even Googling it. 3.0, 2.0.
Yeah, there's a question, like question mark.
There's a forum. I just bought a GTX 480 and looked for a motherboard bundle. But some motherboards have PCI Express 3. Will the GTX 480 work in those slots, or do I need a 2.0 slot?
Beautiful. There you go. You're right. Ooh. So they were 2.0. I sit corrected.
I sit crisscross applesauce.
I haven't heard that like forever. What are you doing?
You can't say it the other way around. It's not politically correct.
You know what? Let's talk about some gaming news because I am so confused at this moment. So this is something. Here, why don't you take this one because I got to stop laughing here for a second.
In other news, the NES Classic leads to the number of unit sales for platforms.
Excuse me.
In June 2018, Nintendo outsold any other hardware platform for the first time in record stating in 1995. Wow!
Hey, Rurutu says GTX 580 PCIe 2.0 x16 from NVIDIA site.
No. Okay. No.
Don't believe the source. We're right. Not NVIDIA.
Although I kind of believe him just only because I really remember like the 600 series and 3.0 being a huge selling point. Unless they re-released certain 500 series cards at 3.0. I don't know. I'm going to take Rudo for his word for it, though.
And we're going to have to... And next week, we're going to update you on what we find. So, basically, what it's saying is something me and you both have. The NES Classic has beaten every other platform as far as units.
Right, and it would have to have sold about a dozen in order to make up the same amount of money selling a PS4 Pro.
Yeah, so PS4 Pro equals 12 NES Classics.
But you got to keep that in mind, though. Margins are margins. So really, anybody can have a more expensive product, but your margins can be the same. So what that means is that Sony could be making much slimmer margins on their sales for the PS4 Pro, while Nintendo is making a higher margin to where half the cost we're paying is actually going right into Nintendo's pocket. And that same cost could be going into Sony's pocket selling the PS4 Pro because of how expensive it is to manufacture it. So that may not even really matter. They could be making the same amount of money per sale as Sony is. We'll never know.
And my follow-up question to this, when I was actually reading about this, was one of the things that it sparked in my mind, and this is something I think me and you have discussed separately, is the Atari console. We know that's like a full-fledged PC running Linux.
And it's still coming.
It's still, well, one day it'll be here. People will probably make their own before that ever happens. But as consoles are moving, as you see, like with the Jaguar APUs and the existing consoles,
right,
as they're becoming more and more closer to PCs, and now the crossover's happening where like you have Xbox Anywhere, where you can play Xbox games on PC. At what point is it just literally people are going to see like, hey, I can game on PC and do other stuff, and it's just everyone's just literally going to migrate to PC gaming because from like AVADirect, you can buy something just like a console and plug it in the wall and go. Into a power strip, sorry. Not in the wall.
I was going to say, you're absolutely right. However, when you got companies like Nintendo creating things like the Nintendo Switch, then that market will always exist. But Microsoft and Sony are not creating a compelling case for any of that. And even if there are some specific exclusives, I'm not chomping at the bit to play it. You know, the Sony PS4, the PS4 Pro has probably about 3 exclusive titles I really want to play, but they don't exceed my desire to play certain games that are available on the PC that I'm currently playing. So,
and yeah, basically it comes down to a lot of these games are now available on PC as well, so you can pick it up on Steam. You have digital. You don't have to worry about having a disc. But then again, they have their own digital download platforms as well.
Right. Nintendo is the only company that refuses to really release any of their specific titles to the PC. Yeah. And Naughty Dog titles from Sony.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Naughty Dog is a studio that is owned by Sony, so they will not release any PC titles, which kind of sucks.
Sony Computer Entertainment America.
Thanks, guys. Well, they know what they're doing.
They want to control.
Sony is like perfect at the exclusive war. Microsoft is still kind of like playing around with it.
Reaper.
Halo?
Reaper, we're ready for next-gen GPUs. We've been ready since before we started this live stream, like months ago.
Yep.
We've been ready since early this year.
I was ready when I got a 2K monitor finally because I jumped on that bus when it was kind of slow and dying. And I couldn't play everything with max settings. I was like, not even a 2K. We're not quite at that point yet. I remember when they used to push 2K monitors with like the GTX 280 cards as a way to like test their metal. And it was like, oh, this is killing this card. We're running it for games too long.
The solder balls just fall off the card. It's like, well, there it goes.
Yeah, they're like, there it went. The die just dropped off the card and is currently being slightly discarded by the fans of said card. We hear rattling.
40 millimeter fans?
Yeah, we hear rattling. Send for help.
Please, end me.
Making smoke signals out of the smoke coming from the back of the system through the card. Just like, oh.
I saw a funny quote today. It said, any machine can be made a smoke machine if you use it incorrectly enough.
Yeah, except for a toaster. That just explodes.
If you leave the toast in there long enough, I've turned a toaster into a smoke machine. Just don't tell Ashley that.
But you just did.
I don't think she's watching. Or wait, no, she is. Never mind. Forget that. That was... Yay me!
Well, I mean, this is good timing. This is really good timing. She caught us at the end of the segment, so...
Yeah, so we're pretty good.
Other than the BioWare talks about Anthem single player.
Yeah, basically, but the big thing is, they talked about Anthem, and I feel like it's going to end up going the same way as Destiny.
I'm keeping a completely open mind, because the last time I got my hopes up for something, Mass Effect 3, it was stomped, shot, stabbed, thrown off a cliff, rolled in gasoline, set on fire. So,
you mean you didn't like the characters walking up to you going like this?
I said Mass Effect 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Mass Effect Andromeda. Sorry. Same difference.
No, big difference, because Mass Effect 3 was the last Mass Effect title that held on to any of the gameplay and the functionality and the mechanics the whole Mass Effect universe had.
Mass Effect Andromeda.
In comes Andromeda.
I am disappointed.
And just when I thought that the facial expressions and I was able to get past them would fix it, dude, I was playing the battles in Andromeda and it felt clunky. It didn't feel together. Like, I remember hearing Casey from a couple of rooms down in our apartment when Mass Effect 3 came out screaming commands into the Kinect because Microsoft included that functionality, and it was so cohesive I could just hear the difference that it would make when she'd be like mid-battle and screaming commands and what that would do for her. I could literally hear what that was doing for her productivity in battles. Andromeda, like that, it just fell apart. There was none of that.
It lost a lot of what made Mass Effect Mass Effect. I feel.
I know.
In my opinion, I mean.
I know.
But there is two things I was super excited about, even though we just got done bashing on Mass Effect Andromeda, is that they hinted at Dragon Age and Mass Effect.
Sweet.
I just hope they make Mass Effect again. They maybe make Mass Effect great again.
Well, they listened to make Mass Effect great again. There needs to be like shirts and hats. But the hats can't be red. The hats have to be like black with like stars and planets all over.
The shirts need to have that face. Remember the ship's on fire. They need to have that right on it.
It's got to be a Mass Effect meme, though. Like, the ship's on fire.
That was so broken. That was almost as bad as Assassin's Creed
what it should be, because it falls directly into the Mass Effect universe, it should be a Krogan make Mass Effect great again.
That would actually be cool. That would be really cool.
Because of the whole campaigning. I'm not going to ruin the story for anybody who has not played the Mass Effect series that wants to. But what you do...
I think spoiler alert is long over for that.
I'm giving respect because certain people don't understand the boundaries of spoilers.
I haven't spoiled much for you, I don't think.
Oh, no? No? Nothing?
Uh-oh. What did I forget? What happened?
Infinity Wars? No? No spoilers?
I did.
Star Wars? No spoilers?
I did, didn't I?
It's okay. It happens. But it just ties in perfectly because of what you have to do for the Krogans and what they have been through and what they lobby for. I just think that'd be fitting.
Reaper says, AVADirect sure to make it happen. If we could get IP rights to do that, I would definitely be down with that.
Do you know anybody at BioWare?
I know a few people within the Origin community that might be able to help with that.
Okay.
So, and they work with them, so I imagine that possible. Mass Effect Andromeda is where franchises go to die. No, I'm pretty sure that's EA. I'm pretty sure EA is where franchises go to die.
No, I gotta kind of agree with him, but a little bit of a correction. It's not where you go to die, because that would imply that
where you go to suffer.
That would mean that you're dying of natural causes, so you want to go in a safe space to do that. That's where you go to commit suicide.
That's where Mass Effect Andromeda is where someone just walks off a building.
That's where you go to seek death when it's clearly not coming at you. Sorry, EA and BioWare, but yeah.
It's the true feels. We're at least honest. We're not going to like sugarcoat it. It is what it is.
Nope, not even if it was a game bundle we were offering.
I know we're a couple minutes over, but I feel like this one really needs to be talked about because it just happened. Is net neutrality in gaming has started to show signs of issues. And this is something I know we all feared. We talked about it. But Spectrum got caught throttling both Netflix and Riot Games' League of Legends.
Right, and I'm going to say one thing, because like anything that exists today, it can be used for good, it could be used for bad. And this is a prime example of how removing net neutrality is being used and being abused.
Yeah.
Because I am a huge proponent of net neutrality being removed if it creates proper competition against companies like Spectrum, to where you have people leaving Spectrum and going with companies that are choosing not to do things like this. So, too early to tell, but if companies start to emerge that give you the ability to have flawless internet without throttling while Spectrum is doing stuff like this, give it enough time and enough consumerism for people to choose what makes sense for them, and companies like Spectrum just simply won't exist anymore.
Well, that's the thing.
So you got to keep that in mind too.
They'll have to get hurt enough in the pocketbook to reverse these kind of decisions, and unfortunately, as you see, I mean, we're in Ohio. There's only a select amount of providers here. So until more come up, these guys are free to play the game how they want and completely screw people.
You're right. It's still early. So people are going to continue to get meddled with overall. But you have to think long term. If that happens, think about Netflix's user base, and think about how many people play League of Legends, and then transfer that into the amount of customers Spectrum would lose when you have options.
Just so you know, Brooke just said if she lived like 4 houses over, she would have got stuck with Spectrum. I am stuck with Spectrum.
I am stuck with Spectrum too. However, I do have to give them halfway credit, because I'm one of those people that uses a cable card solution, and I manage like my own cable boxes throughout the house. And at some point I had no signal to my cable card. I contacted their support, and I told them like, hey, I checked all my equipment. I don't think it's my equipment. I think it's something on your end. The lady replied with, nope, everything checks out. It's a cable card. Go get it replaced. I'm like, okay, so you're going to send me another one? No, go to a Spectrum store. Like, they call it a store. And I'm like, so what do I go to buy there? Nothing. You pick up equipment. Okay, so it's not a store.
Yeah.
It's an office.
It's like a storefront. Yeah.
Call it an office, call it a hub. It's not a store. I'm not going to buy anything, right? So that's issue number one. So I call tech support the next day to get into their dedicated cable card support. And the automated voice is like, you are having problems with your signal. I will send you a new signal. And I hear like, I sent you a new signal. I'm going through like my cable card diagnostics. I'm like, yeah, right, not gonna, oh.
All of a sudden it just worked?
Oh, I have a signal now. And I check and like I'm getting all my channels. Now the problem I'm getting is when I pull up my DVR guide through the software I use, half of the information's missing and it's saying like no video data. It's like I'm gonna have to call and speak to their dedicated cable card support and get them to basically map my cable card with my services again. Coming from a company that once told me when I switched from Time Warner to Spectrum, they're like, we don't do cable cards. I'm like, you don't do cable cards? They're like, no. And I go on their website, their cable card dedicated portion of their website, I'm like, then why do you have a website, like a page designed?
A landing page for it.
Why do you have a landing page for it? And they just went, I'm going to transfer you to tech support.
Well, that tells you they know their product.
Right. But anyways,
so
we've clearly gone over the time a little bit. Our
apologies. Just a couple things to mention. The EVGA anniversary competition, I believe, is over now. It was over yesterday.
But thank you for your participation. We will have more opportunities for you to win things.
Now, in case you did really like that system and you did want one, you can call, email, or even submit online for under our Signature Series. You'll see a section called Elite Series. We do have that specific EVGA system set up so that you can actually buy your own while supplies last if you want an 8086K in it, because we do have a limited amount of those processors and they are dwindling away.
And now our Elite Series are more of our kind of artisan handcrafted PCs. So
and you're going to see more of those coming soon.
So what that means is if you purchase an Elite PC from us, I mean, other than the fact that we handcraft and build our systems anyway, there's little nuances in these systems that you're going to tell just took a lot of attention to detail. Usually those kinds of people, we allocate almost a full day for them to build to make sure that they have the appropriate amount of time they need to build it right.
And all these parts were specifically selected and engineered to work together and to make sure that optimum compatibility. So if you don't want to go through and pick all the parts, you can literally click on that thing, buy now, and pretty much be ready to roll. Other than
Sweet deal there, Wade.
You had to do it. Other than that, guys, we still have our back to school special going, our back to school sale. Please check that out if you haven't already.
Back to school.
If you haven't seen it yet, we do have some cool savings you can get from that. And with that, guys, I really hope you guys have a great weekend.
And I know you're going to have a great weekend, because if you know it and you will it, it will happen.
If you think it, you can do it. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Take care.